For 50 years, these two have been at each other's throats, but here is what almost nobody tells you. Intel created AMD. In 1982, it handed its biggest rival the blueprints to its own chips because a customer named IBM demanded a backup supplier. 4 decades later, that backup is worth more than the company that built it. Intel, you armed your own executioner. How do you plead?
For most of this rivalry, it was never close. As recently as 2006, Intel was worth more than 10 times as much as AMD, an afterthought it could have bought with pocket change. Today, that has completely inverted. AMD is now worth more than Intel, by some measures well over half again as much. The understudy passed the star. The only question that matters is how.
To judge this, you need to see the two bets every chip company makes. Bet 1 is the design, what the chip actually does. Bet 2 is the factory, who physically builds it down to atoms. For 40 years, Intel won by owning both, the best design and the best factory on Earth, always a step ahead of everyone. That was the moat. Now watch what happens when one of those two bets goes wrong.
They were born from the same place. Intel, founded in 1968 by the men who made the microchip real. AMD, a year later, by a salesman named Jerry Sanders. Both spun out of the same legendary company, Fairchildren. AMD started life humbly, making second-source copies of other people's chips. And then, one customer rewrote its destiny. When IBM built the first PC, it refused to bet its future on a single chip supplier. No backup, no deal. So in 1982, Intel was forced to license its x86 design to AMD, turning a small clone maker into a legitimate rival with the keys to Intel's own kingdom. Intel didn't choose its executioner. Its biggest customer chose it for them. And AMD used that gift to humiliate them. In the year 2000, AMD beat Intel to the 1 GHz barrier by a matter of days, a shock to the entire industry. 3 years later, it did something bigger. AMD, not Intel, created the 64-bit version of x86 that your computer runs on right now. Intel had bet on a different, incompatible design and was forced to swallow its pride and copy its rivals. AMD was winning on pure merit, which makes what happened next almost unbelievable. Intel struck back, not with better chips, but with money. It paid the world's PC makers to keep AMD's chips off the shelves, a campaign so aggressive Intel later paid AMD $1.25 billion to settle. By 2014, AMD was a ghost. Its stock had fallen to around $2, its debt was crushing, and most of Wall Street had written its obituary. This is where the story should end. It doesn't. In 2014, a new engineer CEO, Lisa Su, took over the wreckage and made a heretical bet. AMD gave up its factories entirely. It had already spun them off, and now it put its most advanced chips in the hands of a partner in Taiwan called TSMC. There was an old mantra in the chip world: real men have fabs, real companies build their own. AMD broke it on purpose, and that heresy became its superpower. Because at the exact same moment, Intel's crown jewel, its own factories, stumbled. Its next-generation manufacturing slipped and slipped and slipped for years. The company that had always run a step ahead suddenly fell a full generation behind. AMD, renting the best factory on Earth instead of owning a struggling one, simply sailed past it. Intel's greatest strength had quietly become the anchor dragging it under. The results showed up fast. AMD's new Ryzen and EPYC chips, built on that borrowed frontier, tore into Intel's most profitable business, the data center. AMD's share of server chips climbed from around 2% to more than a third. Every point it took was a point of Intel's richest profit, gone. And then the king's decline turned into a freefall. In 2024, Intel suspended a dividend it had paid for decades, cut about 15,000 jobs, and watched its factory division lose roughly $13 billion in a single year. Its stock had the worst year since it went public back in 1971, and its CEO was pushed out the door. And while Intel was bleeding, AMD went looking for a much bigger war. AMD threw itself at the biggest prize in technology, the chips that train artificial intelligence. Its new accelerators landed a landmark deal to supply OpenAI with gigawatts of hardware, and its revenue hit a record of about $34.5 billion. Its next big reveal lands at an event called Advancing AI later this month. Which brings us, finally, back to the crown.
17 years running international markets, and I'll tell you the deadliest mistake a market leader can make. It confuses its advantage with its identity. Intel didn't just own the best factory in the world, it believed it was the factory. And you cannot sell the thing you think you are. Look at how it ended. In 2022, for the first time in history, AMD was worth more than Intel. Today, it is worth well over half again as much. The company Intel was forced to create to satisfy IBM, the one it later paid the whole industry to bury, now sits above it. Intel armed it, starved it, and still lost to it. So here is my verdict. Intel is guilty, not of building bad chips, but of confusing its factory for its moat. Its single greatest strength, owning the best fab on earth, became the anchor that sank it the moment someone else's fab pulled ahead. AMD bet it could never outbuild Intel, so it stopped trying and rented the future from Taiwan instead. This grudge match was never won on design. It was won on who they trusted to build it, guilty of betting the company on its own walls.
Owning your own factory is a moat only while it compounds your lead. Once the outside ecosystem moves faster, it turns into a very expensive religion. The company I'd worry about most is Samsung because its vertical empire is still powerful, but in foundry, advanced logic, and even parts of memory, the risk is that TSMC and more specialized rivals keep setting the pace. Intel's lesson is brutal. The asset that made you inevitable can become the reason you can't turn.
A factory is a moat only so long as it's on the frontier. The moment it falls behind, its immense capital and inertia convert it into a trap. Today, Tesla is most at risk of this reversal, as its identity is so deeply fused with vertical integration that it could be anchored by its own gigafactories if a specialized competitor creates a battery or AI system so superior that the rest of the industry can simply buy it.
What makes this case tragic rather than stupid is that Intel's fab wasn't a mistake. It was the very thing that made Intel Intel for 40 years. Owning your own leading-edge factory is one of the hardest, most valuable advantages in all of business, right up until the moment a specialist like TSMC can do it better for everyone at once, and then it flips from an asset into a fixed cost you can't escape. AMD didn't win because it was braver. It won because it had already lost so badly it had nothing left to defend, which is a terrible way to arrive at the right strategy. The real lesson is that the deepest moats are the hardest to abandon, and the incumbent who can honestly ask whether its greatest strength has quietly become its cage is the rarest and most valuable kind of company.
One caveat the panel insists on. Intel is not dead. It has new leadership, new money, and a real plan to fight back. But the crown has moved and everyone can see it. The verdict stands. So here is the lesson you can steal. Your moat and your identity are not the same thing. The day your greatest strength becomes the one thing you refuse to give up, it stops being a moat and becomes a cage. Intel could not let go of its factories. AMD had nothing left to protect, so it was free to bet on the best. That's the end of this season of Company Wars. Tell me where I am wrong in the comments.